Take us back to McJuggerNuggets reveals 5 secrets on how to write a good series.
Really good
38
series.
minutes.
You came to the right person. For the first time in my 16-year career here on YouTube, I'm going to be revealing my 5 tips and secrets on how to write a good series or how to tell a good story. For those who don't know who I am, my name's McJuggerNuggets. I've got a couple billion views here on YouTube. To all my diehard fans, shout out, you guys are awesome. I'm well known in the community for being one of the very few narrative-driven storytellers here on the platform. It is by no means easy to establish a career being a narrative storyteller on social media. Content on the McJuggerNuggets channel over the years has been more akin to TV and Netflix than I would say like most other YouTubers' content. Now this video is not going to be centered around YouTube growth or how to get views or how to package your series or story so that it is marketable. My main objective is to try to educate you guys and any aspiring storytellers, TV, film writers, screenwriters, you name it, just anyone who wants to write a good story, a good series, something that stretches over many episodes, or something that just requires a little bit more depth than just say a 90-minute script. My biggest claim to fame is the Psycho series, which was close to 700 episodes. We were filming 2 30-minute episodes every single day for 2.5 years. And then my other 2 claims to fame are My Virtual Escape, which is a 24-episode produced cinematic series, as well as The Devil Inside, which is a blend of cinematic and vlog style, which spans over 4 seasons and potentially even a 5th. We could be in it right now, I don't know. Before we jump into my 5 tips, I just want to say that I have actually shown my process before, but mostly in regards to filmmaking and actually the production aspects. I've never divulged anything related to writing. I have revealed the Psycho series secret formula, which kind of tells you how to structure a video for virality, but mostly as it pertains to the freak out genre, but you could apply kind of the hook, the dangle, all these terms that I use into other forms of media. For those who watch the My Virtual Escape behind the scenes, you got to see bloopers and you got to see how it is just directing and trying to memorize lines and all that, which is all well and good, but we need to start from the beginning and how to actually form a good series, how to write good characters, how to come up with that central idea, and just what is the best way to tackle this behemoth. Because to be honest, why I think series on YouTube or on other these platforms, why it's kind of like a lost art is because it is hard. It's just so much more content, it's so much more depth, and there's so much to write and figure out that the barriers to entry are high, and I think not many people are willing to try to create cohesion when it comes to their content, whether that's inside jokes, Easter eggs, you name it. There is so much lore and mythology to the McJuggerNuggets channel that I feel like is often overlooked except for the diehard fans. So let me open the door, if you will, and show you into my process. The very first step is what's known as the core. There are many master classes on how to tell a good story from famous directors, whatever. This is my process. This is what works for me. Take whatever bits you like and apply it to your own, or just straight copy exactly what I do, and hey, that's great. It's a process that I found efficient, and these tips helped me, so maybe they'll help you. So right, step 1, the core theme, the core message, but I like calling it the core tickle, which sounds a little ridiculous, but I like keeping the box wide open. All I mean by this is pick a person, pick a thing. What is something that tickles your brain? Could just be a goofy idea, a funny joke, and you use that as your springboard. Now, I don't want this to feel like a school lesson. There's so much content to show you examples. One of my first series, Overachievers, which was in 480p quality, it just started as a simple idea. What if we filmed a skit on Valentine's Day? And holidays are a great prompt. I ran #MM, which was a weekly series where I shout out different filmmakers and YouTubers, but I give them a prompt. Either you get a prompt from somebody else or you find your own prompt. Ideally, it's something that you're genuinely passionate and interested about. So the core tickle for this series, Overachievers, was I wanted to make a video about Valentine's Day. And what about a confusion between a kid who's in love with his Xbox versus confusion and people thinking it's a girlfriend? It was like a twist. Or the viewer is like, oh, they're talking about Jesse's girlfriend. No, actually, he's a friend of his Xbox the whole time. He has a weird infatuation and love interest with his Xbox. So that was the big twist. And that was a very juvenile, like, simple thing. And then the overall concept of that series was 2 friends so obsessed with Xbox achievements that they start to bring them into real life and try to outdo each other. For my series called The Game, my core tickle was, what if my cousin Tom Abraham is an alien? It's just like a funny offhand joke of like, what if he was an alien? And then you build from that core concept, that core tickle, like, where is the alien from? What are his interests? What are his intentions? What are the other characters? You can see I'll just start it from one idea. For Psycho series, that very initial episode, it was not a fully formed series from the get. It was twofold. One, I saw these freak out videos from Waffle Pone that were performing really well, so I wanted to get views. However, how I made it my own was, my dad in real life always had an issue with us playing video games on his big screen television. He was afraid of the image of a video game burning itself myself onto the screen. It was actually a real thing called ghosting. So say I left the Halo main menu on there. It was left there for 20 minutes while I went to use the bathroom or something. And he comes back, he goes to watch TV. You could actually see a faint image of the Halo main menu burned into the screen. So we were not allowed to play on there. And I thought, wow, that's such a funny concept. And it resonates with me because it's been a point of friction.
You guys ever heard of that? Let me know.
And played on that screen. And what if and it's always a lot of what ifs. What if my dad came home and caught me with my pants down? I didn't realize he was coming through the door. And then how could he destroy it? What's a new way to destroy something? Oh, he puts it in the fireplace. There's a fire agent.
Cleans better with fewer sheets. Charmin Ultra Strong.
It's winter. And then that core tickle became, my dad mows lawns, I'm still obsessed with video games, let's have him run the video games over a lawnmower because he doesn't get a job. It's all based on real life stuff. Now you could do fictional stuff, you can do real life things.
I was watching only trailers on YouTube. She's a TikToker.
To be something that matters to you.
And she's reacting to spoiled kids, and two of Jesse's videos on there.
The core theme of the Psycho series became,
the lawnmower one and the one in the Martin building.
I applied
and the dad threw his Xbox to the pool.
On a larger scale. What's a larger, I don't want to say political message, but what's just a message that you would
so
like
I can't possibly when I target
one
the
thing that
storage
drove
issue.
me crazy was everyone blaming violence in society on video games. Like, what if the video games make you violent? I thought of spinning that
stupid.
negative
I understand
connotation of video
people's
games. It's like,
points,
well, what if
but
it's the abusive dad over years and years that causes the kid to be violent, and it's not the video games? And that was the core theme I wanted to explore. We'll get to the finish for that one in a bit. And then for My Virtual Escape, the core tickle, believe it or not, for My Virtual Escape was actually Leafy is Here, another big YouTuber who did commentary videos. He
He's
even
a
did
big
one on the Psycho
controversial
series while that
dude,
was going
though.
on. But this kid was blowing up.
I don't know
I was actually very
specifics, but I just know he's
fascinated by
done.
him as a
There's
person
just shit
and
going on
honestly
with
as a
him.
character. So I thought, well, what if I wrote a character like Leafy? What is his story? Like, who is this character? Why is he so jaded? Why does he feel the need to criticize and comment on all these other people's lives? Like, what are his issues? And I'm like, well, maybe he's lost somebody. Maybe he's shut off from the world. And I'm like, who's he lost? I'm like, parent, it's kind of explored that. Maybe he lost his little sister. And that was the core tickle. And then you build other things on top of that. But that's step one. Pretty basic, right? Pick something that interests you. Pick something that stands out. Something that's weird. Something that you're always fascinated by. Or the Ursula series. There's a house in the woods that's spooky, and I'm very interested in what exists.
You're going to want to make a series of something you're interested
it's
in.
Ursula. It's Ursula, and she died when
No,
she was supposed to
Jesse,
be married.
though.
So she wants
Let's
to
be
place in her
honest
wedding
here.
dress. And now when it comes to episodes and things, so you come up with the core tickle, what's the series, the show is all about, and kind of just start with one idea, or one character, one thing. And then you start world building from there. And when you're breaking things into episodic, the whole series is serving one theme or one question. Like the violence in video games, or like the abusive father, and how does that mold somebody? But then each episode, you break it into a smaller core tickle. What if, say, a kid got a job as a paintball specialist? Or even a season, you could break a season off one theme. What if, say, a kid was forced to work on a farm? And how does that serve the abusive dad and where we're trying to get to? So that's step one, these cores. You got to collect the cores, right? Step two is define the vehicles. And no, I'm not talking about, this is not like a Forza Motorsports show or Twisted Metal, the series, although that would be fantastic. What I mean is, it's basically defining the characters. And why I'm calling them vehicles is the character is just a vessel to deliver this core message or this story to the masses and to express yourself in the process. So who is the best character, the best lens to look at this important message? So when it comes to the core tickle of the game series, with Tom being an alien, well, there's our main character right there. There is our vehicle, which is Tom the alien. And then we need to find other vehicles. And you also need to establish conflict within it. So who would be a good character to throw into the mix with an alien? Well, let's have a human. I want to be the human because I'm skeptical on aliens. Yeah, how about we have somebody that's an alien and then somebody who's skeptical of aliens? And usually they're opposites of each other. And when you get opposites, that's when you get the best friction. That's when you get the best stories. Because we're all drawn to conflict, and that is what drives us every day, is problem solving, solving issues. And you want characters, you want people that are on extreme ends, so it makes for more compelling storytelling. And so for Psycho series, it's like, okay, you have an abusive dad, and then you have a son who wants to pursue gaming. What if he had a brother that was just like his dad? So you get two of the issue, two problems. And then what if we had another uncle, Uncle Chris, that also is against the gaming and wants Jesse to get a job? Okay, and then, well, what if we just made it a whole war, whole ideological war? What if there was a mom that enabled the kid? And what if there was an Uncle Larry, another uncle, that enables the kid as well and is on Jesse's side? Then we have all these characters. It's like some Game of Thrones. You got all these characters that can battle each other ideologically. And then we have so many twists
gets thrown
so many
around
different
too much.
dynamics and so many different stories that could potentially be explored. And a lot of Psycho series was really just about this internal family drama. Granted, we had some big stunts and everything, but really when it came to production and having to block out all these different storylines, it really was very much like a soap opera, where we could churn these out, make it feel like reality.
operas
And
are
it was
good,
mostly
though. You guys should
about
look
these
into them.
characters. So the more compelling, the more interesting you can make your vehicles, the vessels that are telling the story, the more extreme
28
and
minutes.
polarizing you can make them, the more interesting it is. Unfortunately, with the way the society is now, I feel like a lot of characters have gotten watered down just out of safety. Even though back in the past, we used to explore such great depth and subject matter because artists were not afraid of the repercussions. We could explore the trials and tribulations of every possible extreme character. And now, oh no, what if we don't get the funding, or what if we get canceled, or what if YouTube pulls demonetization? You don't get that compelling story. And the story of Psycho Kid and the story of Isaac Calder, which are very edgy, dark stories, we threw a lot at these
good
characters,
stories.
unfortunately cannot be monetized and it can't be told in the right proper way on YouTube and these other platforms. That's a big issue, but whew, don't get me started. So we have our cortical, we have our vehicles, our vessels, our characters in which to translate this story to the audience. A few days in the future, I could not sleep because I left out such an important step in this process. It's kind of between steps 2 and 3 for your
It seems
characters
like he's in
and the
his old
conflict.
bedroom at his
Everybody
parents'
needs to
house with
have
the
a very
pictures behind
strong
him.
motivation or desire. That is what fuels the characters to get to the end.
Might have a
And
thumbnail.
the conflict
Yeah,
is
it's a-
derived from those characters not being able to fulfill their motivations or desires. So when you're throwing all this stuff at your main characters and why you're making their life miserable, it's just so they cannot get from point A to point B. We all have these wants, these dreams, these desires to manifest, but then there's always something, someone that gets in the way. That's where the conflict arises, and then that's where the resolution can come from. The higher the stakes, the bigger the dream, the bigger the motivation for your character. Like Psycho Kid had such a big motivation to become a pro gamer or a massive YouTuber, and if you have a dad that doesn't believe in you, or you have all these other players in
It
the
is a
virtual
sucky
world
thing, though, you
going
know,
against you,
when
stopping
people
you
don't
from
believe in
wishing
you
to get your little
or don't
sister
think you
back.
can do
These
it.
are very big dreams, which are big stories, which create big conflict and big stakes for your story. I just had to jump in. My motivation right now, Jesse Ridgway, the character, is to make sure you guys know how to tell a good story. So the conflict arises from past Jesse not doing his job right. Motivation's such a big one. I thought it'd be poetic if I did this in front of all my old series, but you have to show change. Your character's wants and desires have to create this evolution. They have to tell this grand story. You just have to show that metamorphosis by the ending. So when you're trying to come up with your ending, it's either the character gets to achieve those dreams and desires, or perhaps they fail miserably and it's a very tragic ending, or it's somewhere in the middle. And really, my Virtual Escape and Psycho series had a more bittersweet, melancholy ending.
Your
To where,
character
yes,
has, like,
maybe
growth
they got
throughout
their
the
dreams
game.
fulfilled, but at
Makes
what
sense as
cost?
well.
Did it cost them their life? Did it cost them their soul? Did Walter White in Breaking Bad, did he get to fulfill his dreams of being the kingpin? You know, the ultimate
I
best
thought about watching
salesman?
Breaking Bad.
Or did he
I
die
don't know.
just like he always planned
There's
to
like
do
so
at
many
the very
things I
beginning
like
of
to
the show,
watch.
and he
It's
loses
just, I don't know
family in
how
the
I don't.
process entirely. It's up to you what kind of ending you want to make, but I would just make sure that your character goes through the full journey from episode 1 to the finale. You can see a very clear difference. I feel like stories that don't have a big change end up feeling not worth telling. I would also just look at your own life. Imagine when you had a strong desire and you accomplished that goal versus you actually know the goal.
So for Wet Jet prevents streaks and haze better than a mop. Love it or your money back. Have you tried
I
the
feel like
tissue
horror
test?
movies, though, they don't really
There's
have big
toothpaste white and there's
Yeah,
pressed
the
3D
thing
white
was-
strips.
I'm happy you finally uploaded this video. I've been wondering
That
when
you
he's gonna
have
upload
and you
this.
never even fulfill them or achieve them. One of them is a life worth living, and the other
Yeah,
one
horror
is
movies will
something
have
that
a lot
you'll
to,
always regret and you'll be sad about
character
because you
development
never
and them if you
fulfilled
think
them.
about
What's
it.
a story that you think is worth telling? And in my eyes, and in probably most everyone, it's universal. We want to see people do
Sorry
incredible
about the sound,
things,
guys.
face extreme adversity, and we want there to be some takeaway, some
I know
impact
some of you probably
that we
don't
can
like that
derive
sound,
and
but the
implement
foot's scraping
into our
against the
own
bowl.
life.
But
If you put the world and the characters of your story through hell, and there isn't some
Sorry,
sort of
I'm eating
payoff,
too.
whether spiritually or the world changes
when you upload
or
this,
whatever, the character
when I got the
dies in
notification, I
end,
was
just
already
make
almost
sure it's
done with
not
making my
all
mac
in
and
vain.
cheese.
Because people sit through 4 seasons of a
I'll
show,
eat the rest
even
of it
a
afterwards.
2-hour movie, and if by the end of the movie nothing's changed, the characters really stayed the same. The world is not affected. There is no impact at all. Things just revert back to normal. If there's no takeaway and no change, well then what was the point? Why waste everybody's time? You're more than welcome to kill off main characters and such, but just make sure it's for the greater good and that there is a reason for it. It's not gratuitous. I don't want to say that there are hard, fast rules, but you do got to make sure that when you're telling a story for audiences, that you don't disrespect their time and their investment into the medium. And it's what makes the difference between a good story and a bad story. You know, there's plenty of shows where they kill off a main character just to boost the ratings or just to have an impact. And I was like, well, what was the point? What did it do for the story? So just make sure that all the decision you're making, it fuels those character motivations or it fuels a larger plot.
Like killing off O'Keefe in the last episode, Walk Again. What did that do?
Next is the actual story, the
Sorry
conflict,
for spoiler
the
alert.
series of conflicts. Or I like to also say, how much can you throw at your characters? This is where it reminds me of like when you're a kid and you have your stuffed animals or your action figures and you just start smashing their heads together. You just start flying them around the room, smashing their heads in the... You take a small bug and you pick his legs off, you throw him across the room, you melt him with a freaking magnifying glass. That is the fun part. That is where you're ripping up the grass, torturing bees, you're ripping your stuffed animals' limbs off. They're hanging, dangling off the edge of a cliff, and then you drop them, and then they're revived and they come back. That's all this. You take those characters that you just kind of formulated and you think, okay, how many issues can we create? Let's take examples. Isaac. Okay, core theme. He lost his little sister. I'm into video games. What's the next evolution of video games? Let's go virtual reality. Why is he playing virtual reality? To escape the death of his little sister. It tells itself. What if there was other characters that want to escape their demons? What if Solomon, who's a little girl, hates her home life and her parents, so she plays a big bad mob boss in the game to try to feel important and special and like she has control in her life? That's a good conflict. Everybody can relate to having issues with their parents. Take Sega Kid, for example. Every kid, when they're getting out of college,
everyone has had
issues
with their parents
they need to
at
get a
some
job,
point.
they need money. That is universally relatable, unless you're like born rich or whatever. In that case, you probably still are going to have fights with your parents in different ways. And then they're like, okay, how many different ways
That's just a given, you know? Because there's always going to be disagreements with anyone in your life, to be honest.
Dynamics. So what if it got so bad for Sega Kid that he gets kicked out of his house? What if all the things he loves, like gaming and filmmaking or YouTube videos, what if his cameras get broken? What if his Xboxes get destroyed? And then you just keep upping the ante. You can even look at the biggest YouTubers. It's all about raising the stakes. And you can apply this to any genre. You can apply it to your own life. And why sometimes people kind of feel like they've plateaued is we all want higher stakes. We want more incentives. And so, okay, Sega Kid's starting to get desensitized as the audience is to an Xbox destruction. What if we built a whole room and just destroyed it and took it from the kid? What if the trailer that he's been hiding out and gets destroyed? What if Uncle Larry, the one person who was always there for Psycho Kid, what if he gets destroyed inside and out? And what if the mom character who enabled Psycho Kid this whole time, what if they get divorced and she leaves the family? And what if even she herself turns against the Psycho Kid? And what if Uncle Larry turns against the Psycho Kid? What if Psycho Kid has no one left?
His family are good actors, though, you know?
Died, and all the things that gave him joy, which were video games and all this expression. What if his room was completely stripped? And what if he was forced down into a small room, just left with himself, whom he's starting to think and question is psycho, like his father? What happens? How much does the character break? Or Isaac, he finally has a love of his life, Rebecca, in the VR world. All of a sudden, she's shot and killed with the gold gun and dies in real life. So not only is his little sister dead, and then what if all of a sudden his stepmom dies of cancer, but his real mom also left the family? What if there's a little girl like his sister in the game, and Isaac's, you just start throwing as much as humanly possible at your characters. And that's what makes a compelling story. You want to create a roller coaster ride. And it can't all be bad, though. So it's not just a matter of like, let me just throw everything. Although I think that makes a more compelling story. And just think of your favorite movies, your favorite TV shows. Think of all the things that these characters have had to endure. And usually the best ones and the craziest stories are the most dire. And that's why I love Lord of the Rings so much, or Lost. It's like these people, man, they've been through the ringer. Walking Dead, like Game of Thrones, like holy even Squid Game, which was immensely popular, the stakes were so high. All the characters got everything thrown at them. We even lost characters, you know? But you do need to have good moments. You don't want to make the audience miserable. And that's why in Psycho Series or MVE, there did have to be those moments where Psycho Kid got to laugh with Uncle Larry, or or got to play with Mark and Corn, or
You
had
need
some
all
videos that did well, or
emotions with the
Jeffrey and
character. You
Psycho
need the
Kid had a
sadness,
moment
the
where they
happiness,
hugged,
the
or
anger.
Psycho Dad actually had a moment in the hunting video
Can't
where
always
he
be like
finally
all
understood
sadness, all
his
anger,
son
all
for a moment,
happiness.
or we had great twists where Uncle
that's not
Chris, who
realistic.
started as an asshole, by the end of the series had turned completely on Psycho Kid's side and was defending him. And the same goes for MVE.
Foot on the
Isaac
leg of my
really,
head.
I really threw a bunch of shit at that kid, man. He really prevailed. But he had a couple moments where he actually trusted Arachnid, or he felt like he was leveling up in the game and he was actually like doing good stuff. He took it to Malachi at the end of season 1, was like, yeah, I'm good at this. Or all of a sudden he escaped in Brothers in Arms and made it out with his life, and he thought, wow.
It's not funny when Jesse does
what a
these
fun
sit-down
run.
videos
You
where
need
he kind
those
of like
moments for
dresses
the
up
audience
with the button down
really
and
just
stuff.
relate to that character and sharing their happiness, sharing their joys. So it's not just about throwing all the bad stuff. You got to throw some really awesome moments for your characters as well. Some close calls, some moments for romance or friendship, just good moments and bad moments. You need the full ride. And that's where the storytelling process comes in. It's mostly in these first 3 steps. The conflict being the most important. And I would just encourage you to think of a million what ifs. It's like you have that character like, okay, what if we threw this at him? And what if we threw this at him? What if we threw this at him? I would not worry about the logistics. How are we going to shoot that? How do we do that? I would just throw as much in the creative process as possible. You can always take stuff out later on if you can't actually pull it off. But you'd be surprised. One of my favorite series I made is Rule 19. It was just 3 episodes of beginning, a middle, and end. And the core tickle for that one was I was just done filming with other people. Other people let me down, scheduling conflicts. I couldn't have other people to film with. So, I was like, you know what? I'm playing every damn character. That was the core for me. I'm going to write something that I play everyone. But I didn't want it corny where I'm like wearing wigs and like obviously it's still all me playing the character. So I'm like, well, how can I do this? Well, what if it's a clone series? What if I'm just clones? So that's why I look the same in all of them. I built my characters. I was like, okay, well, what's the story with clones? Well, what if you wanted some that stand out because they all look the same? They all want to stand out from each other. Well, one goes in the direction of control and power over the other clones. He gets a little crazy with it, too. Also, there's one that's a little nerdy that just wants to develop technology for the clones to advance their little civilization. And what if there's...
These ads. I know they help Jesse, but damn. I'm glad he's getting that finished because I'm showing the clips of Isaac with the read and stuff, so it's good he's still getting monetized. All these
that is just
ads,
loyal to the original Jesse Ridgway and wants to keep the clones in line. And there's another clone that just wants freedom. He just wants to leave all of them behind and have his own life. And then just to make matters worse, they're all battling a ticking time bomb, which is a disease called, ironically, like COVID-19. It's called Rule 19. That's an example of precognition. Anyway, we'll talk.
That is fair. I never thought about that. Damn.
These clones get a virus that causes them to die slowly over time. And so those are the 3 steps right there for that series. But the plot is very much derived by the dynamics of these characters and what is that larger story that you're trying to tell. Just really have fun with it and just write down a million different things. So now we're on to the 4th step. Now, if you haven't realized right now, you already got your themes, your characters, and your story. So all that conflict. So it's already done pretty much. Now step 4 is the structuring process. For me, I'll just go onto my phone and I'll write down the tickle, the characters, all these notes, just gibberish, but I understand it. If I showed it to other people, I think you'd understand it, but it's important that however you need to write it, your process is your process. As long as you understand it, that's fine. However, you want to structure everything. You're doing a long-form series. You really do need to organize it in a way that doesn't even confuse you. So my advice for this, construct a holy Bible of your show. And what that means is map out the roadmap of everything. Where are you taking your main characters? Where do they start and where do they end up? Have some key moments along the way. And that's why, like, for my virtual escape, key moments was like, well, I know this nun character is going to end up getting stabbed because she follows what she thinks is God's voice in virtual reality. Season 2 is just a major climax of, like, the brothers, all of Solomon's brotherhood, as well as Elijah. I just visualized these cool moments that I wanted to share with the world. And it really is kind of like if you've ever done a puzzle, you kind of collect the corner pieces first, then the outside, and then you start filling in the inside. It's the exact same process. So when you're in this Bible, you can have a little character list and you can have what drives them and all that, and you get very detailed. But just make sure you have an overarching view of like what's the beginning, middle, end, where are you going with it? So for Psycho series, it was like I knew I wanted a divorce arc. I wanted an Odd Jobs. I wanted a farming thing. And these were all just explorations. Like it'd be cool if the mom got divorced and then went to stay at a friend's house, because I knew a lot of my audience suffered from that. So let's share that story. I also want where the dad gets so controlling that he locks Jesse up in a small room and it's like solitary confinement, like he's a prisoner in his own house. I didn't know how long it was going to last. I didn't know how long farming was going to last, but I just blocked these things out in my head of like, okay, there's at least 10 big arcs I want to explore, and let me make sure I have that written down. And then also I want to make sure it ends with the kid shooting his father and fleeing to Switzerland. I actually didn't even know where he was fleeing to. I just knew he flees the country. I also didn't know how much money specifically. It's okay that you don't have all the little details. All you're worried about is piecing together the core tickle, the characters, and the main things that you think will be cool to explore. Once you have that Holy Bible complete, and this is the second half of step 4, you then want to start filling in some little details and some gaps. This is when, if you wanted to name your seasons, name episodes, you came up with a cool title for something, there's something specifically you're passionate about that you want to explore in an episode, you can start writing little details. Like, I remember I wasn't sure when Psycho Family Hunting was going to take place, but in my mind that was a turning point with Jesse and his dad, where there was some mutual understanding of each other. I knew I wanted a point where the protagonist and the antagonist, I wanted them to come together. And I don't even like using those terms. I like to say, like, or good guy, bad guy. I wanted the son and father who have been at odds for most of the show. I did want them to come together at a later point in the series. I wasn't sure when I originally wrote it. I wasn't sure how exactly. And these things get pieced together over time, and that's fine. You don't need to have the full show written at the beginning. I would advise against that, because when you're writing these small details, when I wrote My Virtual Escape, I had my Holy Bible. It was maybe only 4 or 5 pages. A lot of it was up here, and I had little cues, little hints for myself. It was like, Solomon's little girl, she gets her throat slit by arachnid, like 3/4 into the show. And why it was 3/4 was because I knew in order to break Isaac, things had to come to a head right around 3/4 in, because you know the end, there's supposed to be some resolution, hopefully, depending on what you're writing. There are no rules to this, remember. Have fun with it. I think people get held up on it has to be a certain way, but no, there are no rules to this. And there you go. You now should have a structure of your characters, your core themes you want to explore, different little plot points, twists and turns along the way, and maybe you have a loose idea of how it ends or the message you're trying to drive across or where you want your characters to end up and how they shift through the series. So you're pretty much done. And now I just wanted to talk about my final step, step 5. This to me is one of the most important things, and that's the ending. I think a lot of people struggle with how to end something, and I know everybody has a relationship with how TV shows end, and whether
Remember,
it's like
guys, too, you can take these two, that's just for a series, but for a show film too, you can use these tips
so many
too.
finales. They're either incredible, like a Breaking Bad, and you're like, yeah, I feel resolved. Or like the Psycho series, kid shoots his dad, flees to Switzerland, and is haunted by what he did. But then also the camera falls over, and turns out it was all fucking reality show. Like, what? Or My Virtual Escape, it was like all a simulation. It was like 3 layers of simulation, like some Inception shit. Isaac and Abraham come to blows in real life. Joseph
That's
gets
my
shot,
favorite episode
and,
of
like,
every
little sister, and
Judgment
they're in
Day.
Haven.
And
It
they
was
do the
like,
fight.
holy crap. More important than anything, if you want a successful show, and I don't even mean like it gets crazy views and whatever, because that would be great. I just mean for your story, like the game series, I told it exactly the way I wanted it, but why I wanted to have it on my own final point for the ending is because the whole purpose of you telling this story is to send a message, and the message could be a form of expression for yourself, and then also potentially help other people. And for some people, that message, that theme, whatever, it's a little muddy, and you can tell the weaker stuff from the good stuff based on how strong that core is. You want to make sure it's impactful, because I've watched so many movies and shows where it ends and then you don't think about it ever again. You watch it, it's like, that was all right, that was good, and then you forget about it. But there's a reason every day I get tweets and messages about the Psycho series. There's a reason people hit me up all the time, every single day, about My Virtual Escape. And it's not because they got crazy views or it was just shot so well. It's because the storytelling was strong. The characters were compelling. Like I said, you don't need that much money. You don't need the best actors. You don't, well, that's not true. You need people that can act. You can shoot on a cell phone. I'll get to that point at the end. But you can tell a story with limited technology and limited resources. But you just want to make sure that when you get to that finish line, that you feel like that you are fulfilled and that you're resolved and that the audience is left with something. Tragedy definitely sells. If you have something lingering, if the audience is left with something like a big gaping hole, a character die, like Breaking Bad, with Walter White. Spoilers, if you haven't watched it, what are you doing? You want to leave them with something. And if you didn't pack a strong enough punch, then the whole show, in my opinion, was for nothing. And it just means that somewhere along that storytelling
Like, I thought
process,
Walking Dead
either
ended
your
good.
characters weren't strong enough, the twists and turns weren't deep enough, the plot wasn't the stakes weren't as high, or maybe you f***ed up the ending. The landing was weak. Maybe there was no takeaway. And those are the stories we forget about versus the ones that stay with us. So I would really make sure that your ending is compelling. Whereas, say, for like the game series of mine, it started as a joke of like, what if Tom was an alien? And by the end, we were exploring this vast breadth of sacrifice.
Friggin' ads. No, I know I shouldn't get upset because, like I said, they help the YouTubers. That's how the YouTubers make money, through ads. But it's like,
scrape, load, and you're done.
And what is humanity and saving the world and where we've originated from and friendship and family and betrayal, like all kinds of crazy messages that I felt like was an ending and was a series and story that kind of stuck with people. For those that were able to watch, I mean, YouTube just killed me with copyright on those, and it was like older before you guys knew me. But something that makes you want to get a tattoo afterwards, you know? Or something 10 years later, you're like, yo, son, or whoever, or my friends, hey, can we all binge watch this together? Can we all watch this? Or like, it makes you want to recommend it to somebody. Sink that landing and have a compelling finish, you know? Finish strong. That's how you do the series. Those are my 5 steps, my 5 secrets. Now, I want to talk a little bit right now just about some quick notes, some stuff that I feel like didn't warrant its own, but is important to know. With the whole structuring of your series, I want to keep reiterating, stay open-minded. Just because you had something written down in the Bible or, it was a compelling idea 2 years ago when you first wrote it, be open to the fact that once you get your head in the game and you're making the show or you're filming the series or maybe you're just going through a rewrite, be ready to ebb and flow and potentially change a lot of stuff that you wrote because maybe you see it with a new lens or maybe you figured out a way you can do it better. And for my virtual escape, I followed that Holy Bible pretty, ironically, religiously. But when it came time for each week, that was when I wrote the episode.
I always wondered why he chose to go like the religious route for MVE. Like, all his characters are based on people from the Bible, if you guys didn't know
once
that.
I was multiple episodes
I've always
in,
was curious
and
about
playing
that.
Isaac regularly, and I was starting to get my head in the game and understand the universe, like by living
And like a lot of the
it. I
names of
started
the
to
episodes
change
too
dialogue.
is stuff
I
from the
started to
Bible as
change
well.
where
So
different characters go and what directions they take. Also, I mean, the series was influenced by you guys making decisions at the end of every episode. But I really made sure to take ideas from the comments, iterate on lines. I'm like, Isaac wouldn't say that. Isaac actually would say that. And that's where improvisation and figuring out on the go creates, I feel like, such a more immersive story and also creates a more realistic atmosphere. And that's why sometimes we would improv a lot of dialogue in MVE. Or Psycho Series, it was filmed in such a way, so the more real and the more immersive it feels, the more you can pack that story into people's hearts. Because the whole point of cinema, TV, and film is you want the audience, the viewer, to lose themselves in the story you're telling. And that's why Psycho Series was so powerful, is people lost themselves because they thought it was real. And that's another layer that I feel like most shows or movies can't tap into. Maybe loosely based on a true story. But this was like as real as it gets. And so because people identified so much with the characters, like, oh my God, it's actually going on, it was pulling at the heartstrings. And with that, you could do so much more. And if we started scripting things in Psycho Series, you would be able to taste it. Something would feel a little off, it would feel a little robotic. And we did have certain lines that I did want to hit, but the line was buried and hidden within a bunch of improv. And we just made sure it made its way out at some point in time. And we just got such a more organic, like the divorce video is so raw, and most of that
7
was
minutes.
improv. I would give key points to hit, and then I'm like, hey, just have fun with it. And that's the key to all this. As corny as
That's
it
important
sounds,
too.
great,
Have fun.
you wrote your series,
Gotta have fun
great,
with it.
you're getting ready to tell your story. Make sure you are having fun with the process, and that's why it's important to get those core tickles that really tickle your pickle, that really light you up and get you excited,
Tickle
or
your
that have
pickle.
you curious to explore.
I know
Make
why
sure the
these kids are
characters
making
you
me
lay out
laugh.
doing stuff with, even if it is just yourself, make sure like you enjoy doing stuff with them or you like creating with them, and make sure that the stakes are high enough. And like I said, as comes up, be ready to move on the fly because you don't know what's going to happen. I remember one big thing was John Haggerty, who played Sexy Momster John. He was never supposed to become the new mob boss. I was presented with a problem at the end of season 1 where Mother Sarah, Mrs. Stahlberger, and Mr. Stahlberger, who was playing Solomon, they were going on a multi-month vacation, sprung out of nowhere. They're like, oh, by the way, we're leaving for like a couple months and we're not going to be around. I'm like, what the is this? Like, we got a weekly show we're doing. I'm like, that's not good. Luckily, Mother Sarah's timed out like she was always supposed to die. But Solomon's running, like, what do we do here? John had come out to be like kind of like an extra in one of the episodes, and I'm like, okay, maybe. Like, John's already proven to be kind of an a-hole in the show. What if the a-hole becomes a new mob boss and Solomon just, like, we push everything back, Solomon comes back later on? And this is the like, dude, if there's one takeaway too, it's this, and this is in life too. When you get thrown a curveball, you can't let it completely destroy everything. Mm-hmm. Like, I was bugging.
Life's full of curveballs.
What do I do? They're really me over right now. But talk about how that issue twisted in the right way. I hit the curveball, and it went even further. All of a sudden, we got a great arc. John becoming the mob boss, Solomon returning, John getting a little way too overboard. It was just that on-the-fly process. Like, all right, well, I guess we'll write it in. You know, Solomon's going on vacation, and who knows, right? Maybe she's, and that's the great thing is you can twist anything. It's your show, it's your story.
For multiple months, I've never heard of that.
Maybe you can find a new way to get to the same destination.
I mean, to each their own, but I don't know.
I couldn't tell you, the trailer in KCoStreams was never going to be destroyed. That was never a thought.
For a minute.
Same with the pool. These are massive destructions I never would have ever considered. However, a couple random things happened while we were doing the show. One was my dad was like, yo, it'd be dope if I had a new pool. I was like, what the? Is this dude trying to tell me he's fine with this current pool being destroyed? I'm like, you saying we could destroy the pool? He's like, I don't know. It'd be cool to have in-ground or something. I forget what the exact conversation was. But I'm like, so you're telling me we can destroy it? And then I forget how it came up. We're talking about Uncle Larry driving into it. And I was like, yo, would you be down for that? Kind of as a joke. It was nothing. It was very loose. And he's like, yeah, why not? And then literally, usually as a joke, that's how it starts. Boom, there's your show. There's a major plot point.
Damn.
And then the comment section, guys. The comment section was ripe with ideas, and I would integrate them in the show all the time. And it's something I still do to this day. The reason I'm making this video is thanks to you guys. You guys suggested I make this, and here we are. It's a very collaborative process. Somebody was like, as a joke, it was like a top comment on one. Psycho Dead Bazooka's RV. And I was like, what the? No. Where are we going to get a bazooka from? And we're not destroying a trailer. We're not destroying a trailer, right? Are we destroying a trailer? With Uncle Larry, how much was this trailer? He was like, I think I owe like 12, 13 grand. I'm like, so if I gave you that money, you would give it to me? So yeah. All right, I'll buy your trailer off you, and we'll have Sega to destroy it. We weren't going to do a bazooka, but all of a sudden, I'm like, I never thought about that. The channel was pulling maybe like $30K a month at the time, so it was like $12K, 1 month, big video. People would be like, how is that fake? Like, holy crap, send it. All from one comment. Another funny example, I always think back, like, me and Kid Behind the Camera, we were filming a collab series in November of 2016, and I was telling him, I'm like, yo, I'm going to go to Boogie's house. It'd be cool to have, like, a collab series with him as well. We just started joking around. It always starts as jokes, where it's like, what if it was like Misery, the Stephen King novel, and he's like an obsessed fan? Or wouldn't it be funny if Boogie all of a sudden just like knocked on my door and was just like, what's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, Boogie298 coming at you live once again. Like, just randomly, shirt off and everything, just comes in the bedroom. And I'm like, yeah, well, what if he like tries to get in bed with us also? I was like, what the and what if he locks me in the attic? You know, all these different things. Just throw it together
cool,
and pop, mix it up and be like,
2016 collab series with Boogie.
So it really does help to have collaborators, people that you find funny or interesting, or just their brain is an open box and they're open to anything. They're creative. Find those people in your life and just spitball, and you'd be surprised at where it can go and where it can evolve into. And if you don't have those people, you can definitely find them in the McJuggerNuggets community. There's a lot of very creative people. But then also just write it yourself. You know, most of my stuff I usually just write and come up with by myself, just because I have multiple personalities in my head that I can easily bounce off of to my other personalities. But anyway, guys, I really hope all this information helped you. This was like the first time I've ever kind of peeled back the curtain on my writing.
It doesn't make me really want to like sit down and make a short film or series or something.
Maybe I can do a follow-up video. Or if you want something now that takes the series stuff and maybe applies it on like, okay, that's all well and good how to tell a good show, but then how do you get it to be seen and how do you get views on that? Let me know. Like I said, help me create all these videos together with you guys. So please direct me into a direction you want me to go. And to be honest, all of this talk is inspiring me to like write a new series or something. But there is that whole element of wanting to write something that will get views, and unfortunately, not trying to be pessimistic, it is very hard to get a creative story to get lots of views on YouTube because all of this algorithm and how stuff gets fed with SEO and trending topics. That is a whole entire process in of itself. But guys, thank you so much. Drop some likes on this video if you're pumped and you're ready to tackle a series. And if there's one last piece of advice, guys, your social media addiction will definitely definitely kill you. You need to be able to get bored and isolate yourself, because when you're bored, all of a sudden that's when you come up with a goofy idea. That's why a lot of ideas come in the shower, and when you're driving, you're doing something, you're on autopilot, your brain's able to wander and daydream. For as long as you have this device in your hands and you're looking at it, you're probably not going to be able to get any good ideas for starters, let alone develop and build very deep stories, mediums, and characters. And honestly, that's why I kind of say it's the lost art. I see less and less of it over time. And hey, let's try and keep this alive, guys. Make me proud. And hey, if there's a nice bunch of you that are interested in this stuff, maybe you guys can help me write the next series together. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I love you guys to death. Good luck, happy writing, and don't forget to keep it rigid.
You know, and unfortunately too, because there is like so many movies and TV shows out there, I feel like that too makes it hard to like come up with a brand new idea that like hasn't been done. I'm not saying it's not possible, but you have to think about that, you know. I mean, I if you want to do something similar to something else, like look at like the Freddy movies, Jason movies, Michael movies, they're all pretty much kind of so similar to each other, all based on killers, right? But they all have different elements. Like Michael's story is like him always trying to kill Laurie, his sister. You know, Freddy, he kills people in their nightmares. So like it's similar, but they have different ways of doing it, like different storylines. So it does make it still interesting instead of trying, you know. So, but I enjoyed Jesse's video. I thought it was really informing. Thank you, Jesse, for that video. Again, I know you guys probably wondering about this while I'm making a video like this. Check out the video I made Monday, or Ashley's reaction video that I have to still upload tonight. By the time you see this video, she's probably gonna already be streaming or finish streaming, depending when you see them. But yeah, it's a good video. I enjoyed it. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Follow me on my socials. Follow Colin on Insta. Subscribe to Josh. Subscribe to Cosmic. Subscribe to Juggy. Subscribe to Dan. Subscribe to Jacob. Subscribe to Caleb. Subscribe to Colin. Guys, please subscribe to me. Please like. And please comment. And I'll see you randomers in the next video. Peace.